to say Eastern Africa, but there's a colossal number of services, and it means that a lot of the hassle we had in getting to Africa down the years, routes changing, times changing, connections getting messy, most of them went through Gatwick rather than through Heathrow, a lot of Amsterdam with KLM, stuff like that. Ethiopian came and just opened a huge number of options. It was like somebody just got an Africa book and said, we're only getting to page 4, now we can go to the end of the book. Thanks very much, Tony. Thanks very much, Dawn, for coming on board. Dawn, I'm going to start with you. What is special about Botswana that not only people in the West who like to talk about African tourism, but everyone else in Africa is looking up to you guys and saying, we want to do what you do? What is special about Botswana? How did they get it right?
I think the main thing is that when they got independence 50 years ago, and it is only 50 years ago, the government decided that they wanted to protect everything that they'd got, the land and the wildlife. And so they put a lot of policies in place to make sure that those were protected. So now we have 30% of the country are game reserves. None of them have fences
30% of the entire country is a game reserve.
Exactly. None of them have any fences around them, so we don't keep the wildlife in those game reserves. But what it means is you can't do certain things. So you can't build houses, you can't build roads. They have to stay completely natural.
And Tony, Addis Ababa, direct flight for the Ethiopian. How long does it take, and how often do you serve that route?
Okay, well,
you have a bit of news on that as well.
The flight is basically the exact same time it takes to get from Dublin to Dubai or Abu Dhabi. It's 7.5 hours. People think it's an awful lot longer because if you look at the map, it just looks further. It's not. We're 3 days a week at the moment. We're Mondays, Thursdays and Saturdays, and we have a 4th service coming in on the 5th of June. And that is very significant because it now means that basically any time you want to fly, we'll have a flight for you. We intend to get to 5 a week by, I suppose, this time next year.
5 a week by 2018?
Well, that'll depend on how good I do my job.
So you need to fill those aircraft?
Yeah, we need to show consistent growth.
You heard it here first.
Which we've shown the consistent growth to get the 4th one. We now need to show more consistent growth to earn the 5th one.
And I have to put this in because that well-known African city, Los Angeles, is also in your portfolio. But tell us, we'll break out to talk about that if you like now.
Yeah,
so
I don't mind. Again, we're 3 days a week to Los Angeles, and the 4th service will make it absolutely enormous. I mean, right now we're Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, which breaks the week up nicely. The 4th service, when it comes in, again, like right now at 3 a week, we're not really in the corporate game, as we call it, business travel. To 4 a week we will be, very much so. Leisure-wise, even the 4th a week gives people the element of choice a lot more. Nobody wants to go for a week or 2 weeks on holidays anymore. This 9 days, 11 days, 17 days.
It's all about flexibility.
All about flexibility. And our fares offer that flexibility.
And are you considering co-chairs?
Well, not so much co-chair. We have a specific arrangement with Virgin America rather than a co-chair.
And that's your Vegas connect?
Yeah, that's to Vegas, to Seattle, to San Francisco, and to Honolulu. Virgin America is just been bought over by Alaska Airlines, so from the end of February it'll be called Alaska Airlines, not Virgin America. But we have a superb relationship with them. Like, for example,
is the relationship continuing?
No, it's absolutely so.
Absolutely, okay.
We allow every passenger 23 kgs of baggage allowance on our flights. Virgin America and Alaska honour that as well. So it's not you're going to arrive with your 46 kgs and then you're told you can't take them. They honour our baggage allowance, which is significant. Like, in other words, if you're flying an economy with us, you are technically allowed 53 kgs of allowance. That's 46 in the hold, and you're allowed to take 7 with you on board.
That's huge compared with your competitors on the route. That's really important. Your fares are also terrific as well.
Yeah, well, we've got a lead-in fare to Los Angeles of $388 return. That's including all charges and taxes.
Great. And the Addis fare return?
Addis fare, well, Addis is more expensive because it's like simple as that. We don't have competition, so it's dearer. It's as simple as that. Like, our Addis fare is about $622 return. We get away with it because we can. But when you look at it, like Cape Town, for example, which is another 5.5 hours further on, is $522 return.
Right.
Because we have so much competition.
So it's more expensive to go to Addis than it is to Cape Town?
Absolutely.
So what happens if I book to Cape Town, get off in Addis?
not possible.
To save €100.
No, it's not possible, I'm afraid, because
I could just miss the flight.
you can't
Tony.
miss the flight, but then you're going to have to go and get yourself a visa.
Okay. So it's all down to the
We'll
visa.
get you one way or the other, Owen. We'll get you one way or the other.
Okay. So that's it. But your network out through ADAS, which would include Botswana, is...
We serve 58 airports, including Gaborone,
Yeah.
in Africa, and that's climbing as well. We serve a lot of the honeymoon destinations like Seychelles, Zanzibar, Madagascar, the Comores, obviously the Cape in South Africa, which is very, very vital. And we have an arrangement now, starting in March, into Mauritius. We're not flying it, but we have an arrangement with Air Mauritius out of Cape Town to Mauritius.
So what would it be? Dublin, ADAS,
Dublin,
Cape Town,
ADAS.
Mauritius?
Well, if somebody's going to Cape Town and make it a two-centre holiday.
I am just thinking honeymoons. That's a big,
Exactly.
it's a big deal, isn't it?
Exactly.
They do the wine route and then they do Mauritius for the beach afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're improving our connections all the time. Some connections aren't where we'd like them to be, but we're improving them all the time. Cape Town is now a very good connection for us.
How long in ADAS?
You're literally, it's a straight transit, it's 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
50
And
minutes.
you can make it in 50 minutes.
Well, at Bole Airport now, this is quite small. And the walk from the actual aircraft to the transit area is about 5 minutes, if it is that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Botswana, the game product is regarded as pristine. You just explained how they decided they were going to keep everything. What is the special USP of Botswana? Talk about Okavango Delta and all the wonderful things we can do there.
I think the main thing is that we have all of the wildlife that you could want to see on safari. So Botswana has the largest population of elephants anywhere in Africa, and they're increasing. So there's no problem with poaching in Botswana, which is another good thing. We have lots of different land areas. So not only are you going to see the Chobe National Park, which is one of the best places to see a lot of wildlife in one place. It's great for kids, it's great for older people because the terrain is quite easy. We've got the Okavango Delta, which is the only inland delta in the world. Has water in it all year round, so you're going to see 450 species of birds, plus all of the other wildlife. And then we've got the Kalahari.
And I think it's fair to say, and Tony might come in on this, it's acknowledged as the premier division of safari worldwide, isn't it? Yeah, it's just beyond description.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut across you, Dawn, while you're in
No, absolutely. I mean, it got a World Heritage thing the other year, so I mean, it is now a World Heritage site. We've got the Kalahari, which is our desert, which is completely different to all the other areas. And then we've got the Makadikati salt pans, a huge, huge area of salt pans. And there are so many activities that you can do within the parks. So you're going to see lots of wildlife.
Yes, this is interesting because people see safari. Safari works basically 3 drives. You get an early morning drive. You take off before the sun comes up. You come back then to breakfast. You then have a day drive, and then an evening, sundown, when the birds are really fighting with each other to get their songs up the charts. Yeah. And what other activities? Because that's something that hasn't reached a lot of perception. Is there are other things to do when you're in a safari resort?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the accommodation in Botswana is at the 5-star level. So most of them are now putting in spas so that during your downtime, when you're having your siesta, you can have your massage or your fingernails painted, all those kind of things. Most places have swimming pools as well, so you can go out and do that. But it's really the activities when you're on safari, because now it's not only just going out in a jeep or maybe going in a boat, but we do horseback safaris, you can go quad biking, there's all sorts of different ways, lots and lots of boating, so you can go in dugout canoes, and it just means a different way of seeing the wildlife.
And horseback, which I've done, is absolutely breathtaking because the animals don't see you, they just see a horse. And you're on this amazing animal going into the middle of the zebra, and hopefully there's no lion about to jump at the end. No, but it is, you actually, like safari, animals don't really see a jeep or something like that as an intrusion either. They see it as like a rock or a tree or something. They see it as, they're used to it. There are great pictures from Kenya of the cheetahs jumping on the bonnet of the 4x4s to watch their prey. But on a horse, you're actually immersed in the safari experience. It is a great thing, and Botswana is pretty much central for the horse. Is Robin Foote one of your...
yes.
And Robin
right.
Foote is important in Ireland. If any of you remember the great fullback for Ireland in the 1970s, Tom Kiernan, Robin is her cousin, I think. And so horseback safari I can recommend really highly.
Yeah.
If we have a couple of roving mics, put your hand up. We'll continue the discussion, but make sure you get your questions in. This is your opportunity. And if you're a bit shy, our experts will be available immediately afterwards to bring up anything that you need. Tony, do you want to do a tour of Africa? Pick out the defining the USP of a couple of countries, because you've been to most of them.
I don't think we've enough time here for that. The continent of Africa is just inordinately huge. It's the biggest question I've been faced over the years is people wanting to bite off too much of it in one go.
Okay.
It's an enormous country. If you just take, for example...
Manage your expectations.
Yeah, well, look, a simple to put things into scale, the Kruger National Park is bigger than Wales or Israel.
Right.
You know, it's a and if you look at the map and you see the size of Kruger, it's a dot.
Yeah.
So it's an enormous country. Like,
it's the size of Munster, really.
It's enormous. So don't bite off too much. That's the first thing. Like if you've never been to Africa, take it in softly. Go to the Cape first. Cape Town is your destination because it eases you into Africa. The culture shock isn't too severe. And then, as you get a bit of confidence, move out into the garden route. Is a wonderful place to your lead into the country of South Africa, taking Route 62 down through Barrydale, stopping for lunch, and
I have to say that when you travel around Africa, they look in South Africa as quite different. And the great phrase somebody used for me, I think it was in Malawi, was they described it as credit card Africa.
Well, very much so. I mean,
Tony's right. It comes with luxury. It comes with wine, great wine, all of that stuff. And it comes with paved roads and a very good infrastructure. So it is a great entry point to get yourself.
It is an entry point. I mean, it's not my favourite part of Africa by any shape, manner or form. I actually took Eoghan to my favourite part of Africa, which is KwaZulu-Natal, over on the Indian Ocean, where Durban would be the main city. KwaZulu-Natal as a destination is acknowledged. You can have 8 different vacations in one 2-week period. Yeah, it's that diverse.
I think the great elephant sitting on the car photograph was from Shashlui.
That's from Shashlui,
yeah, that's great.
And Shashlui, while we're on the subject, it's an actual game reserve that you can get into your car and drive through yourself. Now, I don't recommend it because you don't know where to find the animals, but you can actually physically do it. Like other things that I suppose we don't have a lot of time here, but Johannesburg, if I've got a tenner for everyone who said, I wouldn't go to Johannesburg, it's very dangerous, and I'm going, how do you know? Yeah. I heard, I read, I did a walk tour through Johannesburg with my laptop and my camera on my back, and people have always told me you can't walk downtown. Of course you can. But I did that walk, yeah. Like one of the biggest things I would say to somebody, would you walk around Dublin late at night on your own if you weren't sure about where you were going? The answer exclusively is no. Well, why would you do it anywhere else? Yeah. It's using your comp on. Kenya or Tanzania, Tony? Because one of the things about Botswana, and I'll bring Dawn in on this, it is expensive or perceived as expensive. I think you're going to say it's not as expensive as it's made out to be. But while you're thinking your answer to that, what would you do? What's the entry-level safari price-wise and everything? Would it be Kenya or Tanzania? In Tanzania. Okay, well, Tanzania, for a start, the perception is it's expensive because everything's priced in US dollars. Okay. It's the currency of their choice for international hard currency. Where in South Africa, it's the rand, and the rand is 15 to the euro at the moment. Where you know what the dollar is to the euro at the moment. It's practically parity. So the perception is it's expensive. Tanzania is a very, what I would call a specialised destination. The beauty is unparalleled. And that's where the Serengeti... Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. Like, everyone wants to go to the migration of the Serengeti, but I mean, that's the most expensive time to go because you're going to be hammered for price. If you go when the migration isn't, you're still going to see. And the migration is August, is it, Tony? Yes. Yeah. and it's practically the month of August because, as I always say to them, because it's not all taken over and done within a few days. I said, no, the animals don't know the calendar.
Dawn, the expense of Botswana, it's one of the things that people have in their head. Botswana, beautiful, wonderful, but I'm not going to be able to afford to go there.
I think you used the right word there, perception. Botswana, I'm not going to kid you, can be very expensive if you want it to be. Yeah. We have the most incredible 5-star lodges. You're going to pay a lot of money for them. The main thing to remember about Botswana is the wilderness and the wildlife are exactly the same wherever you stay. So if you want to go for the fluffy slippers and dressing gown and the nice toiletries and all that stuff, great, but it's going to be expensive.
What price? Price. I know it's seasonal, and I know it goes from lodge to lodge, but give us a little bit of a guide from to and from.
I mean, at the very top end, you're going to be paying around about $2,500 to $3,000 per person per night.
Right.
So that's the top end. At the other end, and what I'm talking about is a really nice lodge, really great position, great guides, everything like that. But you're probably talking around about maybe $800 to $900 per person per night. So it's not as cheap as other destinations, but there are two really good reasons for that. One is that the policy that the government have is to keep tourism very, very small. So the lodges and the camps are only allowed a maximum of 24 people. So if you imagine that, there's going to be, and some of them are less than 24, so you're not going to see very many people at all. Botswana is about the size of France, and in some of the parks, like the Kalahari, there's only 2 lodges.
Okay.
52,000 square kilometres and only 2 lodges. So you're just not going to see anyone else.
But it's ideal for managing a scarce resort, which Safari is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people pay a premium price to get into that.
That's right. So you're paying for the exclusivity and you're paying for the slightly higher standard of the guiding and the accommodation and things like that.
And it's the experience of a lifetime. It really
Absolutely. But to make it cheaper, you go in the quieter season, which is October through to February, March, and you actually take less internal flights and do the accommodation at a slightly less higher level.
And when it comes to other destinations, Tony, which is the entry, the most affordable of the safari destinations that you've seen on the market? I'm going to take South Africa out of the equation because so many of us go there. Yeah. We'll throw the other. I
think the Masai Mara in Kenya. I think it's very competitively priced based on what you're getting. The brilliant thing about the Masai Mara is it's flattish, which means your opportunity to see the animals is quite good. Like in Botswana, the game reserves are flattish. Like in Kalahari, it doesn't have big mountains and hills, so you're liable to see leopard, for example. Leopards are inordinately shy and retiring beasts, and for some reason they know when I'm there and they just stay away. But you have more chance of seeing them in places like Botswana.
And what happens, Dawn, if the animals don't show? Because you actually you can't program them to be there for your game drive. No. How does it work?
So basically, the guides are very, very good. They will be taking you on a 4-5 hour trip. And in that time, to be fair, in Botswana, you'd be incredibly unlucky. Don't travel with Tony, but you'd be very, very unlucky not to see anything at all. But they also talk to you about the trees and the flowers.
Absolutely.
The number of birds that are around is just incredible. So you get and they will show you the tracks as well and explain them, how you're going to find things. So it's actually a whole journey.
The animals, they're the big 5 is what everybody comes. It's like a checklist. Mm-hmm. And what are they?
I knew you were going to ask me a difficult question. It's elephant, rhinoceros, buffalo, leopard, and lion.
And now for the bonus prize, Tony, what are the little 5?
Oh, dear God.
Okay, we leave you off that. Right, we have a question for the audience here. Yeah, 1 sec.
So if I was to travel to safari to Botswana, for example, what is the ideal amount of time that you would recommend people spend with you?
If you're going to Botswana, you really need to see at least 2 of the different parks. I always recommend people spend no less than 2 nights in each place. So you really want to say a minimum, and an absolute minimum of 5 days. But a week to 10 days is about the perfect amount of time.
And transiting time, Dawn, because a lot of people who go on land-based safari holidays spend a lot of time bouncing around very bad roads. The distances in Botswana can be very, very big. How do you recommend people get around?
There's two ways. As I said, if you've got the money and you want to spend it on that, then flying between the destinations. Between some of our parks, it's going to take you an hour to an hour and a half flying. But if you want to spend slightly less and be on safari all the time, a great way to go is a mobile safari. So you're actually traveling all the time. You're stopping for maybe a day or two at one campsite. They'll put up the tents, they'll do the cooking, but you're out in the bush all the time. And you haven't got to go to the airports and pack all your stuff up because it just moves with you as you're going.
And internal flights, easy to get? Is there a particular airline or particular charter company that does them?
There's really two in Botswana. One is Air Botswana, the national airline, and the other one is South African Airways. They're the ones that really do all the internal flights.
And I think across Africa there's quite a few, like Safari Link in Kenya is one I'd be familiar with. I would recommend it. It's sometimes you look at prices, but you can end up with spending a lot of a very valuable short week on roads. And I know Botswana's infrastructure is quite good, isn't it? But I do know Kenya's roads are pretty appalling. Although they have a new road into the Masai Mara now, but they were appalling.
Yeah.
Any questions from the floor? And Tony, do you want to take us down to Mozambique and Malawi?
I think
Zimbabwe, I know you're a big fan of until...
Zimbabwe is stunning.
Should people go there now?
I think, well, he's nearly dead now, so I think it's... I always made the point I refused to go to Zimbabwe while Mugabe was still alive, but I think I'm going to have to just bite my bullet because it's not helping, obviously.
Yeah,
it's a stunning country.
Zimbabwe is growing as a tourism destination, not so much out of the English-speaking markets, but Italy and France. And when I talk to them at trade fairs and I meet them, things have lifted considerably in tourism.
If you consider, Owen, what we've just done, we've just developed a flight from Addis Ababa to Victoria Falls. So we're obviously buying into the Zimbabwe thing now, and like Hwenge National Park is the major national park in Zim, and it's 30 years ago it had the most incredible stock of animals, but they're coming back now. It's been allowed to grow naturally again, and Vic Falls, you've two ways to see Vic Falls, either from Zimbabwe or from Zambia, and without any shadow of doubt, the place to see it from is the Zimbabwe side. Without any shadow of a doubt. Yeah. It's cheaper, number one, and the accommodations are just as good.
And they use the US dollar.
And but I mean, in Zim is cheaper though. It is definitely cheaper. It has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mozambique, the big wilderness.
Mozambique is all about, quite frankly, it's all about if you like water and water sports and the concept of being literally your own best neighbour. Mozambique is definitely there for you. It is also not the cheapest destination. But if you can get out to Vilanculos is just incredible, from all the snorkeling, scuba diving, yachting, just lying on a beach and just looking at the sky.
There's 1,000 miles of beach, I think.
Absolutely.
That's great. Dawn, you were coming in there and I could across here.
I was just going to say about Victoria Falls. It's only an hour and a half's drive from Botswana's border. So we actually encourage people who are going to Botswana to go to Victoria Falls, either for a day trip or just overnight. And now you can fly, as Tony said, into Victoria Falls, spend a couple of days there, and then continue your holiday in Botswana.
Excellent.
And if you were to, say, visit Victoria Falls and then move to maybe a third park after spending a week in Botswana, where is your ideal destination? Where would you personally recommend to go to?
Sorry, after you've been in Botswana, go somewhere else?
No. As in when you come back to Botswana, if you've planned a day trip to Victoria Falls and you say, you know what, I have 10 days, it's going to be, say, 3, 4, 5 in Botswana and then off to Victoria Falls. Where would be your go-to, finish the holiday, absolute peak of Botswana?
Finish the holiday on a high, Dawn. Where are you going to go in Botswana?
For me, it would be the Kalahari Desert. It's just the most incredible place. You've got so much space, so much wildlife. Camping is the way to go. I was there. There were only 4 of us. There was me, my husband, a guide, and a camp hand. We camped for 4 nights in the middle of the Kalahari. We saw amazing wildlife. And in the whole 4 days, 4 nights, we saw 1 vehicle.
Excellent.
So we had the whole place to ourselves. It was just unbelievable. And the stars, because there's no light pollution at all, you actually get to see stars wall to wall. It's incredible.
You've hit a point we haven't even mentioned, which is just the night experience under the Southern Cross. And because of the light pollution, the absence of light pollution, you don't, in most countries of the world, you see stars. In Africa, you see the constellations.
You do.
You know, you just see the spread of sky that you never really encounter. I mean, you can encounter it in other circumstances, but it's so natural to Africa. It's part of the whole African experience.
It's the diversity. The diversity in Africa is endless. Like, if you just take, for example, Ethiopia, if you mention the word Ethiopia, what comes to your mind? Famine.
To a certain generation, Tony, you're showing your age.
Or marathon runners. You know, it's an incredibly diverse country.
It's the capital of Africa.
98 million people. It's the most impressive historical and cultural destination you will ever find. They have 9 UNESCO sites ratified, with 6 more waiting to be ratified. There's 1,000,001 things to do from a cultural and historical viewpoint. That's just one country. That's just one.
I often feel, you know, Ethiopia is a Christian country, a little bit of an island, and it's like it was isolated from the rest of Christianity. So I often feel when you go to somewhere like Lalibela, which has these little stone churches, it must have been what Clonmacnoise or Glendalough were like in the 8th or the 7th century, and you go and a priest with a long beard comes out with the Holy Cross and blesses you, and it's just a real sense of revisiting what the Culdi movement or what the ancient Irish monastic movement must have been like. As Tony says, very diverse, cultural.
And it's also predominantly Christian. It's predominantly Christian
and Indiana Jones got it wrong, because where is the Ark of the Covenant?
Yes.
It's in Axum.
And the oldest, the remains of the oldest living human is in Ethiopia. She's been named Lucy, and she's classified as 3 million years old.
Right.
Her bones are in the museum.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your... we have a question here. My apologies.
Weather-wise, what is the best time to travel?
Well,
when to travel?
Depends on the country, really.
Yeah.
It's that a continent is that diverse. For example, winter time in Cape Town is June to August. Summertime is late November to February.
Dawn?
Well, as far as Botswana goes, any time is a great time to travel. We have our winter time, dry season is April to November, but not necessarily the best time to go. I'd always tell people to go in November because it's slightly warmer and the wildlife are having their babies, and so you're likely to see lots more predators. Sorry about that, but you do.
Absolutely. So, trip of a lifetime, Dawn. It really sounds wonderful. If everybody's happy, we leave it. If there's another question, I'll take it. Thank you very much to my travel experts here, Dawn and Tony, and thanks. I hope you enjoyed the session as much as I did. I really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.